An unsolved mystery. Can AI finally catch D.B. Cooper? Imagine a cold, overcast afternoon on November 24, 1971. A Boeing 727 rolls down the runway at Portland International Airport in Oregon, bound for Seattle, Washington. A short flight, just 37 minutes. Inside, passengers chat about their Thanksgiving plans. Flight attendants serve drinks with practiced smiles, and the cockpit crew runs through routine checks. But among the crowd, one man goes unnoticed, a man about to turn this ordinary flight into a legend that echoes through history. He boards the plane carrying nothing but a black briefcase. Dressed in a dark suit, crisp white shirt, and a black tie, he looks like any other businessman. A pair of sunglasses hides his eyes, a shield against the gray Portland sky, or perhaps against anyone who might try to read his intentions. There's no rush in his step, no sign of nerves. In just a few hours, he'll pull off the boldest hijacking in American history, a mystery that, over 50 years later, still eludes the FBI. His name? D.B. Cooper. This isn't a Hollywood script. It's real, a true story that's confounded thousands of agents, journalists, and amateur sleuths for half a century. A bloodless hijacking, a perfect escape, and a name that's become synonymous with the impossible. How did he do it? One man, alone, with no obvious weapon, no accomplice, takes control of an entire plane, demands $200,000 in ransom, about $1.5 million today, and then leaps into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. No identity, no body, no clues. For over 5 decades, the FBI has scoured every lead, interviewed countless suspects, and dissected every detail. But D.B. Cooper remains a ghost. Did he survive that jump? Or did the freezing night claim him and his cash forever? Back then, technology couldn't crack the case. But now, in 2025, we have a new ally: artificial intelligence. AI could trace his path, from the stormy skies of that fateful night to the forgotten bills he might have spent, unlocking secrets humans missed. Let's step back in time to that pivotal day, unravel how it all began, and see if we can finally find the answers the world's been chasing. On November 24, 1971, Portland International Airport buzzes with pre-Thanksgiving energy. The sound of rolling suitcases mixes with boarding announcements over the intercom. Travelers line up at counters, airline staff process tickets, and the air hums with routine chaos. Amid it all, a man steps up to the Northwest Orient Airlines desk, unnoticed by the crowd. He carries no luggage, just a sleek black briefcase tucked under his arm. His dark suit fits perfectly, the white shirt pristine under the terminal's dim lights, and a black tie adds a touch of formality. Sunglasses cover his eyes, an odd choice for the cloudy Portland dusk, hinting at something he doesn't want seen. He approaches the counter, his voice low and steady. One-way ticket to Seattle, cash only. In 1971, paying with cash raises no eyebrows. No credit cards, no ID required. Just hand over the money and board. It's a simplicity unthinkable today, but for him, it's the first move in a flawless plan. No paper trail, no way to track him later. The ticket agent, a young woman perhaps daydreaming about her holiday break, takes his cash and prints the boarding pass without a second thought. She asks for a name. Dan Cooper, he replies, calm as ever. Dan Cooper, a name so common it blends into the background, like a John Smith or a Michael Brown. No one could guess that within hours it would be etched into the annals of American crime. Ticket in hand, he passes through security, a lax process back then, with no scanners or thorough checks. The briefcase stays with him, unopened, unquestioned. He melts into the crowd, another face among many, until everything changes. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727-100, prepares for its short hop to Seattle. The plane's half full, with 36 passengers and a crew of 6. Late afternoon light fades outside as thick storm clouds gather, a sign of the rough night ahead. Dan Cooper takes seat 18C, near the rear on the right side. It's no random choice. From here, he can see the whole cabin, every passenger ahead, every crew member moving up and down the aisle. He settles in, resting the briefcase on his lap, watching silently. Flight attendant Florence Schaffner, a young woman with a warm smile, makes her rounds before takeoff. As she passes his row, Cooper looks up, polite and composed. A bourbon and soda. She nods, jots it down, and heads off. He takes the drink, sipping slowly, then pulls a Raleigh cigarette from his jacket pocket. He lights it, a thin stream of white smoke curling into the cabin air. In 1971, smoking on flights is as normal as breathing. No one bats an eye. But as the smoke drifts away, he flashes a faint smile, a glint of something sharp flickering behind those sunglasses, like he's already playing out the next move in his head. Captain William Scott, a seasoned pilot with thousands of hours in the air, runs final checks in the cockpit. The engines roar to life. The Boeing 727 taxis down the runway, and then surges into the sky. Through the window, Portland shrinks into the distance, swallowed by gathering clouds. To everyone else on board, it's just another quick trip. To Dan Cooper, it's the opening act of a meticulous scheme. He's ready. About 20 minutes after takeoff, Florence Schaffner returns to collect cups and check on passengers. The plane's leveled off, the engines humming steadily, the cabin quiet and calm. As she nears seat 18C, Cooper raises a hand to catch her attention. Without a word, he hands her a small, neatly folded slip of paper. She smiles, assuming it's a playful note or a flirtatious message, common enough for flight attendants back then. She slips it into her pocket, planning to read it later. But then he leans toward her slightly. Behind those sunglasses, his voice cuts through, calm yet chilling. "You'd better read that now, miss. I have a bomb." Florence freezes, her smile vanishing. Her heart pounds as her trembling hand pulls the note from her pocket. She unfolds it, eyes racing over the precise handwritten words. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. Sit down beside me." It feels like the air's been sucked from her lungs, each letter stabbing into her chest like a blade. She looks up at Cooper. He's still, unshaken, the sunglasses masking any hint of emotion. No fear, no nerves, just absolute control. She has no choice. Her legs shaking, she sinks into the seat next to him, her breath ragged. As Florence sits, Cooper unlatches his briefcase, just enough for her to peek inside. The dim cabin light glints off 8 red cylinders, tightly bound with tangled wires, linked to a bulky battery pack. It looks like a bomb, no expertise needed to see the deadly threat it poses. Blood drains from her face. She doesn't dare move, doesn't dare scream. He closes the case and turns to her, his tone even. "I want $200,000 in cash, all in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready when we land in Seattle." He pauses, then adds, as if stating a fact, "If they don't cooperate, I'll blow it all up. I've got this figured out." Florence swallows hard, her throat dry. This isn't a bluff. This man means every word. She nods, forcing her voice steady. "I'll tell the captain." Cooper gives a slight nod. "Good. No funny business." She stands, legs trembling, and stumbles toward the cockpit. One thought screams in her mind, if this goes wrong, no one on this plane will make it out alive. When Florence bursts into the cockpit, Captain William Scott is tweaking the controls, while First Officer Mike Anderson and Flight Engineer Harold Anderson chat about the schedule. But her pale face and shaking hands silence them instantly. "What's wrong?" Scott asks, his voice low but tense. Florence takes a deep breath, then whispers, "There's a man on board. He says he has a bomb. He wants $200,000, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck in Seattle." The cockpit falls deathly quiet. Scott, Anderson, and Harold exchange tight glances. A hijacking, and the hijacker's right there, with a bomb that could end them all. Scott grabs the radio, contacting Seattle Air Traffic Control. "This is Flight 305. We've been hijacked. Alert the FBI now." Within minutes, the news hits FBI headquarters. Phones ring off the hook, agents scramble, and airline brass are called in. A plan takes shape. Gather $200,000 in marked bills for tracing later, and prepare 4 parachutes. On the ground, dozens of police cars and agents swarm Seattle-Tacoma Airport, locking it down for the most intense standoff in U.S. aviation history. Back on the plane, Dan Cooper sits calmly in 18C. He takes another sip of bourbon, lights another cigarette, and gazes out the window. Smoke swirls around him, a quiet victory in the air. Everything's unfolding exactly as he planned. From this moment, Flight 305 is no longer a routine trip to Seattle. It's the stage for one of the boldest crimes in American history. Who is Dan Cooper? What does he really want? And most crucially, is that bomb in his briefcase real? In just a few hours, the name D.B. Cooper will sear itself into millions of minds, a symbol of mystery and impossibility. But the story's far from over. The night sky disappearance. Picture a Boeing 727 cutting through the night sky over Washington state, its engines a low roar against the howling wind outside. Inside, a man in sunglasses sits calmly, his black briefcase resting beside him, while a terrified crew follows his every command, uncertain of what's coming next. The passengers, blissfully unaware, chat and sip their drinks, oblivious to the drama unfolding just steps away. This isn't just a hijacking, it's the setup for one of the most audacious escapes ever attempted. D.B. Cooper isn't your typical Skyjacker. He doesn't demand a flight to some far-off country. He doesn't hold the passengers hostage with a gun to their heads. All he wants is money, $200,000 in cash, and 4 parachutes. No hijacker before him has dared such a stunt, and no one after him will ever pull it off with such eerie precision. But the question that's haunted the world for over 50 years remains. Did he actually get away with it? Or was this his final, fatal gamble? Did he vanish into the night as a master criminal? Or did the dark, stormy wilderness swallow him whole? Tonight, Flight 305 is no longer just a plane. It's a ticking clock, counting down to a moment that will baffle investigators for decades. Let's climb aboard and witness the tension, the strange demands, and the chilling leap that turned Dan Cooper into a legend. By now, Flight 305 has been circling above Seattle for over an hour, burning fuel as the FBI scrambles to meet the hijackers' demands. The cockpit crew, Captain William Scott, First Officer Mike Anderson, and Flight Engineer Harold Anderson, sit in strained silence, their eyes darting between instruments and the door where Florence Schaffner last disappeared. Outside, the sky is a swirling mess of black clouds and icy rain, the storm growing fiercer by the minute. In the cabin, the 36 passengers remain clueless. A businessman flips through a newspaper, a mother adjusts her child's blanket, and a young couple shares a quiet laugh. No screams, no panic, just the hum of a normal flight. But at seat 18C, Dan Cooper sits like a statue, his bourbon glass empty, a cigarette smoldering between his fingers. He's the eye of the storm, dictating the fate of everyone on board without raising his voice. Florence Schaffner, still shaken from seeing what looked like a bomb in his briefcase, gathers her courage and approaches him again. Her voice trembles slightly. "Can I see it again?" "The bomb?" Cooper doesn't hesitate. He tilts the briefcase toward her, just enough for a glimpse. There they are. 8 red cylinders, wires tangled like a spider's web, a battery pack promising destruction. Her pulse races. It's no prop, no trick. It's real, or real enough to kill them all. She backs away, her mind spinning. This isn't a man losing control. This is a man who's already won. She hurries to the cockpit, slamming the door behind her, and relays the update. He showed it again. It's still there. He's not bluffing. The crew's faces tighten. They're trapped at 10,000 feet with a madman, or a genius, calling the shots. Cooper's demands are crystal clear when Florence returns to him. $200,000 in cash, all in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 primary, 2 reserves, and a fuel truck waiting when we land in Seattle. His voice is steady, almost bored, as if he's ordering dinner instead of orchestrating a heist. But one detail snags in Florence's mind, and later, the FBI's. 4 parachutes. Why 4? Is he planning to take someone with him? A hostage? Maybe her? Or is it a ruse? A way to throw off the authorities, making them think he won't jump alone? Down on the ground, FBI agents in Seattle huddle in a cramped office, phones pressed to their ears, sweat beading on their foreheads. The cash is being counted, stack after stack of marked $20 bills, each serial number logged for tracking. The parachutes are trickier. Someone suggests sabotaging them, cutting lines, rigging them to fail. But the lead agent, a grizzled veteran named Hargrove, shuts it down. No chances. If he's got a bomb, we're not risking 42 lives up there. Give him the real thing. It's a call that might seal Cooper's fate, or theirs. 4 fully functional parachutes are loaded into a van, headed for the tarmac. Back on the plane, Cooper lights another cigarette, exhaling slowly. He glances at his watch, then out the window into the pitch-black night. Time's ticking, but he's in no hurry. Every second up here is a second he's winning. After 2 grueling hours aloft, Flight 305 touches down at Seattle-Tacoma Airport at 5:39 p.m. The wheels screech against the wet runway, rain pelting the fuselage. Outside, over 100 FBI agents, local police, and SWAT teams surround the plane, their breath fogging in the cold. Spotlights sweep the aircraft, but no one moves in. One wrong step, and that bomb, if it's real, could turn the tarmac into a fireball. Inside, Cooper issues his next command through Florence. Tell them to send the money and parachutes to the rear stairs. No one boards. I'll handle it from there. A ground crew worker, hands shaking, drives a cart to the plane's aft end. The rear staircase, unique to the Boeing 727, lowers with a hydraulic groan. Another flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, volunteers to take the risk. She steps into the rain, retrieves the heavy sacks of cash and the 4 parachutes, one by one, and hauls them up the slippery steps. Her heart pounds as she hands them to Cooper. He inspects the loot with a quick, practiced eye. $200,000 in neat bundles, the parachutes strapped and ready. Satisfied, he keeps his word. He turns to Tina. "Release the passengers, and 2 of the crew can go. You stay." Minutes later, 36 dazed passengers file down the front stairs, met by flashing lights and shouted orders from police. Florence and another crew member follow, legs wobbly with relief. Now, only 4 remain on board. Captain Scott, First Officer Anderson, Flight Engineer Harold, and Tina Mucklow, Cooper's last link to the crew. He's got the money, he's got the parachutes, but he's not done. Cooper leans into the intercom, his voice crackling into the cockpit. "We're flying to Mexico City. Here's how it's going to work." The crew listens, stunned, as he lays out his bizarre demands. Fly at no more than 10,000 feet. Keep the speed under 200 knots. Don't pressurize the cabin, and take off with the rear stairs down. Scott's jaw tightens. Mexico City? That's over 2,000 miles away. A Boeing 727 can't make it without refueling, especially at that low altitude and slow speed. And the rear stairs down? He keys the intercom. "Sir, the plane can't take off with the stairs deployed. It's not designed for that." Cooper's response is immediate, unperturbed. "Fine. I'll lower them myself once we're airborne." The crew exchanges looks. This isn't random. He knows the plane, its limits, its quirks. The low altitude keeps it jumpable. The slow speed makes it possible. The depressurized cabin means he can open the door mid-flight. He's not going to Mexico City. He's going to jump. Tina, hovering nearby, catches his eye as he adjusts his tie. "Why Mexico City?" she ventures. He smirks, the first crack in his calm facade. "Why not?" It takes nearly 2 more hours to refuel and prep the plane. At 7:36 p.m., Flight 305 lifts off again, climbing to 10,000 feet as ordered. Rain lashes the windows, wind buffets the wings, and lightning flickers in the distance. A storm no sane person would fly into willingly. Cooper stands, motioning Tina toward the cockpit. "Go up front. Stay there. Lock the door." She hesitates, then obeys, her footsteps echoing in the empty cabin. The last glimpse she gets is Cooper at the rear, fastening a parachute harness, strapping the money sack to his waist with the precision of someone who's done this before. At 8:13 p.m., the cockpit crew feels it, a sudden jolt, a shift in pressure. Not turbulence, not mechanical failure. Scott checks the gauges. The rear stairs have been deployed. He grabs the radio. "He's opened the door!" No response comes. At that moment, somewhere over southwestern Washington, D.B. Cooper steps to the edge of the stairs. Rain whips his face. The wind roars at 170 knots, and the night stretches out below. Black, unforgiving, endless. He takes a breath, grips the railing, and jumps. The plane flies on, landing safely in Reno, Nevada at 10:15 p.m. When the crew finally checks the cabin, he's gone. All that's left, a black tie, a mother-of-pearl tie clip, 8 cigarette butts, and a mystery that will outlast them all. Did he survive? The moment D.B. Cooper disappears into history, he leaps into freezing rain, pitch darkness, and a storm-ravaged forest with $200,000 strapped to his body. Did he land safely, vanishing into the wild as a free man? Or did he misjudge the jump plummeting to his death in the trees below? And if he survived, where did he go? The Great Escape. Did D.B. Cooper survive? Imagine a man standing on the edge of a Boeing 727's rear stairs, 10,000 feet above the rugged forests of Washington state. Rain lashes his face, the wind howls at 170 knots, and darkness stretches out below like an endless abyss. Strapped to his waist is $200,000 in cash, his prize from a daring hijacking. Without a word, he steps off, disappearing into the stormy night of November 24th, 1971. That's the last anyone sees of D.B. Cooper. No body is ever found. No parachute turns up. No definitive evidence surfaces. For over 50 years, one question has burned in the minds of investigators, conspiracy theorists, and curious onlookers alike. Did he survive that jump, or did it kill him? This isn't just a crime story. It's a puzzle with pieces scattered across decades. A massive FBI manhunt combs the wilderness. A shocking discovery years later hints at his fate. And now, in 2025, cutting-edge AI is stepping in to sift through the past, offering hope of answers where human efforts fell short. Let's follow the trail after that leap, the desperate search, the tantalizing clues, and the theories that keep D.B. Cooper alive in our imaginations. Did he beat the odds, or did the night claim its victory? The morning of November 25, 1971, dawns cold and gray over southwestern Washington. Hours after Cooper's jump, the FBI launches one of the largest manhunts in its history. Hundreds of agents, state troopers, and National Guard troops fan out across an 80-square-kilometer stretch of wilderness, their boots crunching through wet leaves and pine needles. Helicopters buzz overhead, their rotors slicing through the fog, while search dogs bark and strain at their leashes. The terrain is a nightmare. Dense evergreen forests tower overhead, their canopies so thick they block out the sun, hiding anything or anyone below. Raging rivers like the Lewis and Cowlitz churn with icy water, swollen from the storm, capable of sweeping away a man or his gear in seconds. Snow dusts the higher ridges of the Cascade Range, where temperatures plunge below freezing. If Cooper landed here, survival seems unlikely. Lead Agent Ralph Himmelsbach, a wiry man with a smoker's rasp, stands at a makeshift command post, poring over maps marked with the plane's flight path. The jump zone is a rough guess, somewhere between the towns of Ariel and Woodland, based on the pressure shift felt at 8:13 p.m. He jumped into a hellstorm, Himmelsbach mutters to a deputy. No way he made it. For weeks, they search. Divers plunge into rivers, pulling up nothing but logs and debris. Ground teams scour ravines and hillsides, finding no parachute, no body, no scraps of the cache. The storm has erased any tracks, leaving the FBI with empty hands and growing frustration. Cooper's either a ghost or the luckiest man alive. Years pass and the trail goes cold. The case fades from headlines, but not from memory. Then, on February 10, 1980, a boy named Brian Ingram, just 8 years old, is camping with his family along the Columbia River near a spot called Tina Bar, about 20 miles north of Portland. Digging in the sand to build a fire pit, his shovel hits something odd: 3 soggy, crumbling bundles of $20 bills. His father examines them, puzzled. The bills are decayed, edges frayed, but the ink's still legible. They call the authorities. When FBI agents arrive and check the serial numbers, their jaws drop. These are Cooper's bills, $5,880 of the original $200,000, marked and cataloged from that night in 1971. The find reignites the mystery. Agents swarm Tina Bar, combing the riverbank with metal detectors and shovels. Divers plunge into the murky water, searching for more. But nothing else turns up. No other bills, no parachute, no sign of Cooper. The questions pile up faster than answers. Why only 5,880 out of 200,000? Did the rest scatter, or did he keep it? How did the money end up 30 miles from the supposed drop zone? Did it wash downstream, or did someone, or Cooper himself, bury it there? Himmelsbach, now retired but still obsessed, weighs in. He didn't make it. The cash proves it. Probably fell out when he hit the ground. But others aren't so sure. The bills are found in 3 tight bundles. Rubber bands still intact despite years in the elements. Could nature really carry them that far? That neatly? Or did Cooper plant them as a decoy? A taunt to throw off the chase? The FBI and armchair detectives split into 2 camps, each armed with arguments that keep the debate alive. First, the theory he didn't survive. Cooper jumped in a thin suit, loafers, and a trench coat. No gear for a freezing, stormy night. The parachute he took was a military model, non-steerable, leaving him at the mercy of the wind. The terrain, rivers, cliffs, dense woods, was a death trap. No body, no parachute, no gear ever surfaces, suggesting he's still out there, lost to the wild. He's fish food in the Columbia, an agent quips during a briefing. But if he died, why isn't more of the money found? A crash should have scattered those bills far and wide. Then, the theory he lived. Cooper's plan was too precise. The Boeing 727, the altitude, the speed, all pointing to aviation know-how. Maybe he had an accomplice waiting below with a truck or boat. No missing persons report matches his profile. No one notices a mid-40s man vanish after that night. And that $5,880? Too little to be an accident, too much to be coincidence. Maybe he ditched it to fake his death. He's laughing somewhere, a detective muses, sipping a bourbon with our money. If he survived, he'd be in his 90s today, or long gone, his secret buried with him. For decades, the FBI relied on fingerprints, sketches, and boots on the ground, methods that failed to crack the case. Now, in 2025, AI brings new hope, turning cold clues into fresh leads. Weather modeling is first. AI crunches data from November 24, 1971. Wind speeds gusting to 30 knots, rain falling at half an inch an hour, visibility near zero. It simulates Cooper's fall, factoring in his weight, the parachute's drift, the storm's chaos. The result? A tighter landing zone, shifting the search south of where the FBI looked. Maybe they missed him by miles. Facial recognition comes next. Using the composite sketch from crew descriptions, mid-40s, brown eyes, dark hair, AI scans millions of archived photos, driver's licenses, military records, even old yearbooks from the 60s and 70s. Could Cooper's face be hiding in a forgotten file? A new identity built on cash? Then there's money tracking. The ransom's serial numbers are fed into algorithms analyzing decades of bank records, pawn shop logs, even casino transactions. If Cooper spent a single $20 bill, AI might catch it, a financial footprint proving he walked away. 50 years on, D.B. Cooper remains a phantom. Did he die in that stormy plunge? Did he slip away, living quietly under a new name? Or, just maybe, Is he still out there, watching us chase his shadow? As AI peels back the layers of this half-century riddle, we're closer than ever to the truth, or so we hope. Prime suspects and controversial theories. Who was D.B. Cooper? A man leaps from a plane into a stormy night, $200,000 strapped to his waist, and vanishes, leaving behind a black tie, a few cigarette butts, and a mystery that's defied solution for over 50 years. Since that cold November evening in 1971, the FBI has chased over 1,000 suspects, each a potential D.B. Cooper. Was he a trained paratrooper, a disgraced spy, or just an everyday guy with a wild plan? One question towers above the rest. Did the FBI know who he was all along and keep it under wraps? As the decades pile up, the line between fact and fiction blurs, spawning theories as wild as the jump itself. Now, with AI sifting through the past, we're digging into the prime suspects, men whose lives tease at the truth, and the conspiracies that refuse to die. Let's meet the faces behind the legend, weigh their stories, and ask, could one of them be the man who outsmarted the world? Robert Rackstraw, the con artist with a military past. Picture a cocky 28-year-old in 1971, a Vietnam vet with a chip on his shoulder and a knack for trouble. Robert Rackstraw fits the bill. He's an Army helicopter pilot turned rogue, decorated for bravery, then kicked out for lying about his record. Parachuting? He's done it. Explosives? He knows them cold. Add a rap sheet with fraud and theft, and he's got the makings of a Cooper. Investigators eye him hard in the late 70s. His build matches, 5'10", lean, but the flight crew pegged Cooper as mid-40s, not late 20s. Still, Rackstraw's cagey. When a reporter corners him years later, he grins, "Could be me, could not be. What's it to you?" The FBI tests his DNA against Cooper's tie in 2018. No match. Case closed. Almost. Critics argue he could have aged himself up with a disguise, and that smirk says more than words. Did Rackstraw play the long con, or just love the spotlight? Kenneth Christiansen, the airline insider. Now meet Kenneth Christiansen, a quiet Northwest Orient Airlines worker in his mid-40s, right in Cooper's age range. He's no stranger to the Boeing 727. He's loaded cargo onto them, knows the rear stairs like his backyard. Brown eyes, short dark hair, he fits the sketch. And he's got a smoker's habit, just like the hijacker's Raleigh stubs. His brother Lyle pushes the theory after Ken's death in 1994. On his deathbed, Ken whispers, "There's something you should know, but I can't tell you." Then there's the cash. After he dies, family finds thousands in unmarked bills stashed away. No explanation. Enough to raise eyebrows, not enough to prove it's Cooper's loot. But his height, 5 feet 8 inches, is off, and DNA from the tie doesn't match. Was he an insider who pulled it off, or just a guy with secrets? Richard McCoy, a copycat or the real deal? 5 months after Cooper's jump, on April 7, 1972, Richard McCoy hijacks another Boeing 727. Same playbook. Handwritten note, parachute escape, cash demand. This time $500,000. He's a Vietnam vet, a trained paratrooper, and a Sunday school teacher with a daredevil streak. The FBI nabs him 2 days later, $499,970 in hand. He spent a whopping $30. McCoy's flight path mirrors Cooper's. His build and age, 29, close but not perfect. When grilled about Cooper, he stonewalls. "Never said I was, never said I wasn't." He escapes prison in '74, only to die in a shootout months later. No DNA match, but the similarities nag. Did McCoy copy Cooper, or perfect a trick he'd already mastered once? Dwayne Webber, a deathbed confession. Dwayne Webber's a career crook. Fraud, theft, a life of aliases. In 1995, dying of kidney disease, he grabs his wife Jo's hand and rasps, "I have a secret. I'm Dan Cooper." Jo laughs it off, until after his death, when she digs into his past. He's got a limp he blames on a plane jump gone bad. In 1979, he took her to Tina Bar, where Cooper's cache surfaced a year later, muttering about old times. Age, height, build, all close. But fingerprints and DNA don't match the tie. Jo insists he dyed his hair, wore lifts, fooled everyone. Skeptics call it a dying man's boast. Did Webber spill the truth, or craft a final lie for the ages? William Smith, the railroad worker, with a grudge. William Smith's a New Jersey railroad man in his mid-40s, bitter as the industry crumbles in the 70s. He blames airlines like Northwest for stealing freight business. Brown eyes, dark hair, right age. He's a fit. Then there's the tie. Titanium particles found on it, rare in '71, linked to railroad metalwork. No parachuting on his resume, but he's smart. Engineer trained, meticulous, no cash stash, no confession, just a quiet life till his death in 2009. Could resentment have driven him to jump, or is he just another face in the crowd? The biggest theory: did D.B. Cooper live or die? Two fates dominate the debate. He died. Thin suit, old parachute, brutal terrain. No way he survived that night. The $5,880 at Tina Bar, dropped in a crash, washed downstream. He's bones in the woods, an agent grumbles. Or he lived, too clever to fail, maybe with help below. No missing persons report, only a fraction of the cash found. Signs he walked away. He's out there, mocking us, a sleuth insists. Then there's the twist. Did the FBI know and cover it up? The case closed in 2016. Files still sealed. Was Cooper a Fed? A deal struck in shadows? Can AI finally identify Cooper? AI's rewriting the hunt. Facial recognition scans old IDs and military pics, hunting Cooper's face. Weather sims redraw his fall. Wind, rain, drift, pinpointing new search zones. Money tracking digs through 70s bank logs for those marked bills. Could a machine unmask what humans couldn't? Is the truth closer than ever? For 5 decades, D.B. Cooper's been a shadow, soldier, worker, con man, ghost. As AI sifts the clues, are we nearing the end of the chase? The most insane conspiracy, theories about D.B. Cooper. Truth or pure fantasy? Picture this. A man leaps from a Boeing 727 into a stormy night, $200,000 strapped to his waist, vanishing into a void of rain and darkness on November 24, 1971. No body, no parachute, no trace. D.B. Cooper becomes a ghost in an instant. For over 50 years, the FBI scratches its head, chasing leads that go nowhere. When facts run dry, the human mind takes over, spinning tales wild enough to fill the gaps. Was he a secret agent with a government cover? Did he even jump at all? Could he be a time traveler? Or something not human? These aren't just barstool ramblings. They're theories that have fueled books, forums, and late-night debates. Some cling to scraps of evidence. Others leap into the absurd, but all keep Cooper's legend burning bright. As we close this journey, let's dive into the craziest conspiracies about D.B. Cooper. Because when the truth hides, imagination runs wild. And with AI now probing the case, can we sift fact from fiction? Or will the mystery only deepen? Cooper was a CIA agent, and the hijacking was a cover-up. Imagine a Cold War operative, trained in shadows, stepping onto Flight 305 not as a criminal, but as a pawn in a bigger game. One theory claims D.B. Cooper was a CIA asset, and the hijacking was staged, maybe to test airline security, maybe to smuggle cash for a black op. The Boeing 727's rear stairs, used by the CIA in Vietnam for covert drops, Cooper knew them too well. His calm, his precision, his aviation smarts, hallmarks of agency training. The FBI's failure to catch him? Not incompetence, but a quiet order to stand down. Picture agents in a smoky room, shredding files as Cooper slips into a new life. Passport freshly stamped. No proof, just whispers. The sealed FBI files from 2016 don't help, feeding the idea that Uncle Sam's hiding something. Did Cooper trade his tie for a desk in Langley? Or is this a spy novel gone rogue? Cooper never jumped. He had an accomplice on the ground. What if that leap at 8:13 p.m. was a lie? Some theorists argue Cooper never left the plane mid-air. Picture him ducking into a cargo hold or a service hatch as Flight 305 droned toward Reno. The pressure jolt? A trick? Maybe he just jostled the stairs to fool the crew. When the plane lands, he waits. An accomplice, say a Northwest Orient insider, ushers him out under cover of chaos while the FBI fixates on the wilderness. The tie, the cigarette butts, left behind to sell the story. Meanwhile, he's sipping coffee in a diner, cash split with his partner, laughing at the helicopters overhead. It's slick, but thin. The crew found no trace of him in Reno, and the plane was searched top to bottom. Still, the idea lingers. Did Cooper outsmart us all without ever touching a parachute? D.B. Cooper was a time traveler. Buckle up. This one's out there. Imagine Cooper as a man from 2071, not 1971, stepping onto Flight 305 with knowledge no one else could have. He picks the Boeing 727 because he's studied its specs in a future archive. He demands parachutes because he's seen the playbook, maybe even wrote it. His calm? A time traveler's confidence, knowing the FBI's every move before they make it. The cash never circulates because he doesn't need $1971. He's got a vault waiting decades ahead. That jump? A wormhole? A portal? Zapping him back to his own era, leaving us chasing a shadow. No evidence, pure science fiction. But the lack of a body, the flawless plan, it's fuel for late-night Reddit threads. Did Cooper bend time, or are we just bending logic? D.B. Cooper was an alien or a non-human entity. Cue the X-Files theme. UFO buffs swear Cooper wasn't human, an extraterrestrial testing Earth's defenses. Picture an entity in a suit, sunglasses hiding not eyes but sensors, boarding the plane to poke at our systems. His composure? Alien indifference to human panic. The bomb? A prop? A bluff from a being who doesn't need weapons. He jumps, and no body's found because he doesn't fall. He ascends. A ship cloaked in the storm scoops him up, cash and all, leaving us to bicker over cigarette butts. The money at Tina Bar? A taunt dropped from orbit to keep us guessing. It's bonkers. No UFO sightings that night, no strange lights. Yet the total disappearance fits a narrative too weird to dismiss outright. Was Cooper from the stars, or just a star at fooling us? The US government knew his identity, but kept it secret. Here's a darker twist. The FBI solved the case years ago, but locked it away. Imagine Cooper as a high-ranking official, maybe CIA, maybe military, gone rogue. Exposing him risks a scandal. Government man hijacks plane, escapes, so they bury it. The 2016 case closure, a curtain drop on a finished play. Sealed files back this up. Why hide them if there's nothing to see? The $5,880 at Tina Bar, planted to close the book, while Cooper lives out his days under protection. Picture him in a quiet suburb, pension fat, smirking at the news. No leaks, no proof, just suspicion. Did the feds trade justice for silence? Or is this paranoia run amok? D.B. Cooper survived and left clues for fun. Now, imagine Cooper alive, well into his 90s, chuckling at us from a rocking chair. This theory says he landed clean, ditched most of the cash, and built a new life. Maybe in Canada, maybe a sleepy US town. The $5,880 at Tina Bar? A deliberate drop, bundled tight, a wink to keep the legend alive. He watches documentaries, reads headlines, maybe even mails anonymous tips to toy with sleuths. That tie clip, a signature left behind, a trophy for us to find. He's not hiding, he's playing, savoring the chaos he sparked. No sightings, no confessions, just a tantalizing what if. Is Cooper still out there, the ultimate trickster? Can AI debunk these theories? AI's the wild card in 2025. Facial recognition scours old photos. Could it spot Cooper in a CIA yearbook or a UFO convention? Weather sims rerun that night. Did he fall or float away? Money tracking hunts those $20 bills, spent in 1972 or stashed in a future vault. It's a long shot, but it's hope. Maybe a machine can pierce the madness. The legend lives on. 5 decades later, D.B. Cooper is more than a man. He's a myth. Mastermind or fool? Dead or alive? Human or beyond? The conspiracies spin on, each crazier than the last, because when the truth slips away, we fill the void. AI might crack it, or it might not. Maybe Cooper's laughing, maybe he's dust. One thing's sure, his story's not done haunting us. Thanks for joining this wild ride through the D.B. Cooper saga. What's your theory? Drop it below, and let's keep the mystery alive.